Hello, welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about Magic the Gathering that's probably wrong, but fun to talk about. I'm Shauna.
And I'm Leslie.
And today we are bringing you another deep dive into a commander deck. These are the 5 new commander decks that have just come out with What is it?
March
of the Machines. And so this one is, we're going to go through, as usual, we're going to go through all the decks, creatures, and all sorts of craziness that's going on. And then we're going to, if you stick around, we're going to give you some tips on how you can tweak them. I'll let Leslie introduce this deck to you.
Yes, we are doing Divine Convocation in this video. And our commander for this deck is Kasla, the Broken Halo. She is gorgeous. Terrifying, but gorgeous. She is a 6 mana cost commander. So pretty high, pretty expensive. She's a 5/4. However, she has Convoke. What is Convoke, you ask? Well, you can use your creatures as mana to help cast your commander. And you can use your creature for colorless mana, or you can use it for a color depending on its color. So if it's a white creature, you can tap it for white, which makes it a lot easier to cast. And you can use that for commander tax as well, because commander tax is colorless. So she also has flying, vigilance, and haste, which makes her a triple threat on top of being easy to cast. And whenever you cast another spell that has Convoke, which there are a lot of in this deck, you get to scry 2 and draw a card. So scrying, card draw, vigilance, haste, and what did I say? Flying, vigilance, haste, scrying, card draw, and Convoke on this card. She is, I don't honestly know why she's not more popular, because she is crazy. So this deck is all about creating tokens, using them to convoke. There's tons of token creation cards in this deck. You're going to swing in with unblockable creatures, so there's some fun shenanigans with that. You're going to control the board. You're going to scry. You're going to draw a ton of cards. Take advantage of that card draw. There is lots of fun with this. If you don't want to use, for whatever reason, Kasla, you can also use Saint Traft and Rem Karolus. Only a 3 mana cost commander for 3/4, and when it becomes tapped, you get to create a 1/1 human creature token. If this is the first time this ability has resolved this turn, if it's the second time this ability is resolved, create a 1/1 blue spirit token with flying. And if it's the third time, create a 4/4 angel creature token with flying. So this one is all about just the token creation. Whenever you cast a spell that has Convoke, untap this guy. So the nice thing about that is that you can then untap him and use him to Convoke again if you want. So we'll talk about some of those mechanics as we go. But first, Sean is going to tell you a little bit about what the guts of this deck look like.
Yeah, so this deck, according to the mana distribution, so it's the 3 colors, but it's got mostly white in this deck. So 56% of that is white, 19 is the red, and 25 is the blue. So probably doing what those colors do best, kind of thing. The mana curve is a little bit higher than some of the other decks. The average is 3.75. So this one has a lot of stuff at the 3 and 4 range, so about 4 at the 1, 12 at cost of 2, 15 at the 3, and about 13 at the 4, and then you've got quite a bit at the 5, 6, 7, and 8 level. Lots of creatures, a few artifacts, a few spells, but you do have a lot of creatures here. Obviously, you want to have lots of creatures that you can be convoking. As far as the card distribution goes, it's pretty pretty even, really. About 39% land. So there's 39 lands, so it's right up there as far as lands go. We've got 29 creatures and 31 spells, so it does have quite a few spells and enchantments and things like that. So, yeah, it's an interesting pie. But we're going to let Leslie tell you about the formula that we use to evaluate these decks.
Yes, so we're going to break this deck down for you into 5 separate categories, tell you about the cards in the ramp, the removal, the card draw, the high impact, and some of our support cards. We believe that you should have around 15 ramp cards, around 15 removal, around 13 card draw, 12 high impact, and 10 kind of support or other win conditions. These are suggested amounts. They'll get you a pretty even starter commander deck, and then of course you can tweak up and down in those categories depending what you need. The more you can add high impact and that also fits in those other categories, the better as well. So what's our first section?
Our first section is the ramp mana generating section. So the formula calls for 15, as Leslie mentioned there, but this deck has only about 8, but take into consideration the fact that it has convoke, so you don't need as much mana because you have creatures, but you might want to look at this section a little bit. It, of course, has our 2 favorite ones that are in all the commander decks. Thank you, Wizards, for doing this. Soul Ring for 1, and 2, it taps for 2 colorless, and the Arcane Signet, which is now a commander staple as well. That's a 2 and can be tapped for any mana that your commander has in its commander colors, color identity. Yeah.
And then we have Commander Sphere, which allows you to add 1 mana of any color in your commander's identity, as well as gives you a little bit of card draw. So that's always great.
Yeah. Then we have the Cultivator's Caravan, which is a nice little 5/5 vehicle, but you can just use it to tap for mana. And then later on, when you don't need it anymore as mana, you can crew it for 3. So crewing a vehicle just taps. You have to tap anything with a total power of 3. And then this becomes a creature, and you can attack with a nice little 5/5. So it's a great little tool to use for early ramp, and then use as a creature later on.
And then we have Wand of the World Soul. When it enters the battlefield tapped, so you can't use it right away, but then you can use it to add 1 white mana, as well as you can tap it, and the next spell you cast this turn has convoke. So if it doesn't have convoke as a word, you can give it convoke, which is a nice little addition. I believe this is one of the new cards that comes with the deck. These decks all have planes in them. There's a separate deck that you can put in the middle of the table. It's called a Planear deck, and inside the Planear deck will be several different planes. So for example, you might be at the fertile land of Solvania, and that card is just sitting on the top of the deck, and it affects everybody in the game. So this one in particular has, whenever a player taps a land for mana, that player adds 1 mana of any type that land would produce. So there's 10 of those planes that come with each of these commander decks, and the 10 planes that come with it definitely help your deck out most. There's also a separate little ability that has a fun little chaos symbol next to it. So if you're rolling the Planear dice, which I'll explain in a second, then this particular thing happens. So whenever chaos ensues, reveal cards from the top of your Planear deck which is this deck, until you reveal a plane card, which will be the next one. Chaos ensues on that plane, then you put all cards revealed this way on the bottom of the Planear deck and in any order. So basically you just do whatever happens. If you roll the Planear dice, which has mostly blank sides, it has 1 planeswalker symbol and 1 chaos symbol. If you roll the planeswalker, then you would move to the next plane, and then that effect would take over for this one. If you rolled the chaos, then the chaos would happen, and most of the time nothing will happen. Well, not most of the time, but you can also roll the chaos or the Planear die anytime you want throughout, as long as it's a time that you could cast a sorcery. The first time you roll it is free on your turn, and then you can roll it any number of times that you want. You just have to pay mana based on the number of times that you've already rolled the dice. So if you've already rolled it, or if you've already rolled twice, then it's going to cost you 2 to roll it a third time. So that's how the Planar deck works.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so you talked about Ichor Elixir and Fractured Power. Oh, okay. So the Ichor Elixir is a card that's new to these decks that have, if you would roll one or more planar die, instead roll that many planar dice plus one and ignore one of them. So depending on what you want to do, or you could tap it and use it for 2 colorless mana, which is useful as well. The Fractured Power Stone is similar sort of thing from before, that tap for mana, or you can roll the planar die as well with it. So just one time.
And the last ramp card in this deck is Cloud of Fairies, which is a lovely little card because everyone loves a Cloud of Fairies. For 2, it's a little 1/1 with flying. When Cloud of Fairies enters the battlefield, untap up to 2 lands, and then you can also use it to cycle, which means discarding that card to draw a card. So it's a little card draw as well if you need it for that. But when it comes in, you get to untap 2 lands, which basically makes it free because you tapped 2 to cast it.
Yeah, cool. Then we're on to the removal section. So the formula calls for 15. The deck has about 14. The first one is actually one of the cards that I fell in love with when I first started Magic, Banisher Priest. I don't know why. I just love the artwork on it, especially. It's 2/2 for 1 and 2 white. Little human cleric that when it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until the Banisher Priest leaves the battlefield. So, yeah.
And then we have Duergar Hedge-Mage, which is 2 and red-white hybrid mana, which means you can pay either red or white. For 2/2, and when it enters the battlefield, if you control 2 or more mountains, you may destroy target artifact. So some artifact removal. When Duergar Hedge-Mage enters the battlefield, if you control 2 or more planes, you can destroy target enchantment. So depending on what you need, if you control 2 or more mountains and 2 or more planes, then you get to do both because they would both trigger.
That's nice. Goblin Medics. This is a little 1/1 Goblin Shaman for 3. When it becomes tapped, it deals 1 damage to any target. So this is a great little tool to use for the convoke. And then you're just sitting there going ping, ping, ping. Yeah. So it's awesome.
Conclave Tribunal is a nice little removal with convoke. So this is our first card that's kind of coming up with also convoke on it. So it costs 4, or you can use your dudes to use as mana to cast it. When it enters the battlefield, you can exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls, and then it just kind of sits underneath this until Conclave Tribunal leaves the battlefield. So they may get it back, but it takes it out of commission for a little bit anyways.
Yeah. Then there's Swords to Plowshares, which has been great that they put this in pretty much all of the decks that have white in them. It's a little instant that you get to exile a target creature, and its controller gains life equal to its power, but you're getting rid of something that's a big threat for you.
Yeah. So then this next one is a little bit tricky to understand, but hopefully I can clear it up for you. So it's called Wear and Tear. I love when they do these double cards and they put the words that work well together, wordplay, you know. So Wear is 2 mana, and it's an instant, and you can just destroy target artifact. Tear is destroy target enchantment. And then this also has Fuse. So what that means is that you can choose to cast one side, the other side, or both sides. You would have to pay, of course, the mana that is relevant for that. So if you wanted to pay a white, a red, and any color or colorless, then you could do both sides at once. Once that has been cast, then it's just in your graveyard. So some dual cards have different kind of ways to use them, but that's how you use this one.
Yeah, I didn't even notice the Fuse on there until you sort of said, like, oh yeah, I see that now. That's cool. Tiny writing's hard for old people to see sometimes.
Yeah.
All right. Cut Short is a new little instant that for 2 and a white, it has Convoke. And you can destroy target planeswalker that was activated this turn, or a tap creature. So this is a great little tool to use at instant speed.
Yes, just wait for them to use that
Yeah.
planeswalker.
Yeah.
Devouring Light for 3 also has Convoke, and you can exile target attacking or blocking creature.
Cuckoo. Stoke the Flames for 2 and 2 red, but it has Convoke as well. Stoke the Flames deals 4 damage to any target at instant speed. Very useful.
Shatter the Source for 6, which is expensive, but surprise, it has Convoke as well. Choose one, Shatter the Source deals 6 damage to target creature, planeswalker, or battle, and or you can choose it destroy target artifact. Now, in March of the Machines, a lot of times these decks are made to play against each other. There are quite a few or a number of artifact decks, so there's a lot of artifact removal that has been kind of put into this deck, which is you might need.
Yeah. Then we have Temporal Cleansing, which is for 3 and a blue, a little sorcery that has Convoke. And the owner of target non-land permanent puts it into the library second from the top or on the bottom. So they get to decide that, but you're getting rid of something for a little bit, gaining you some time.
Austere Command does not have Convoke. It costs 6,
Sadly.
but you get to choose 2. Destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, destroy all creatures with mana value 3 or less, or destroy all creatures with mana value 4 or less. So you do have to choose 2. It doesn't say you may choose 2. You have to choose 2 of them, but you get to decide what will help your battlefield the best.
Yeah. Hour of Reckoning for 4 and 3 white. It does have Convoke, so which is really nice, of course, and destroy all non-token creatures. So hopefully you have lots of your tokens out that you can use.
Well, and there is lots of token
Yeah,
generators in this deck, so
exactly.
hopefully. Angel
Yeah.
of Finality for 4 is a 3/4 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. So get rid of their graveyard shenanigans.
Yeah. Then we're into the card draw tutors section here. The formula calls for 13. The deck has 7, but remember your commander has the drawing and scrying piece of it. So it's really going to help you out. And this card in particular is going to help you out a lot. It's going to do a lot of work for you. A Skull Clamp, if you can get this out, you're set. Its mana cost is only 1, and you put it on to a creature of yours. Whenever equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards. Its equip is only 1. So you're going to put this onto something that's going to die pretty much immediately. And then you're drawing 2 cards. It's just so good. I'm
Pay
surprised
1
that
to
they put
draw
this
2
in.
is
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
it's crazy.
Spirited Companion for 2 is a little 1/1 papa. And when it enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card. So
Yeah. Mentor of the Meek. This is another really, really great card for this deck because you're making all sorts of little less than 2 power things. And whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield, you can pay 1 and draw a card. So again, that paying 1 to draw a card is just so good.
yeah. And Whirlwind of Thought for 4, it's an enchantment. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, draw a card. So the nice thing about these is that a lot of these draw cards that they've put in here are ongoing draw effects. It's not just pay once and you get to draw that many cards.
Yeah.
Except for the next ones.
Yeah. Meeting of the Minds is for 3 and a blue that has Convoke. So it helps you with that whole Convoke thing and draw 2 cards. So potentially you could be drawing 2 cards for free.
Artistic Refusal for 6. But it has Convoke, so you're good. You get to choose one or both. So this could be a counter spell if you need it to be, and you might as well, if you're going to counter their spell, draw 2 cards and discard a card.
And then we have a little Fallow Sage, which is a little merfolk, and whenever it becomes tapped, you may draw cards. So using this for your Convoke, you're going to draw cards. So good. Yeah.
All right, on to our next section, which is one of the fun sections. High impact cards. These are cards that are going to either win you the game or turn the tides in your favor. So all of a sudden now you're going to be a threat and people are going to target you. So our formula says you should have at least 12. This deck has 13, so right on par. The first one that we've identified is Suture Priest for 2. It's a little 1/1. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you may have that player lose 1 life. So there's choice there for them losing life if you want to make friends. It's also just gaining you life on a regular basis, and it's whenever that creature enters, not when you cast. So all of those tokens that you're going to be creating will now gain you 1 life every time they enter.
And Tetsuko, this is another high impact card in this deck because as you have all these little guys everywhere, they're going to become unblockable because of this card. Creatures you control with power or toughness 1 or less can't be blocked. It can just overwhelm your opponents. It's awesome.
And Deluxe Dragster, speaking of unblockable, is a little 5 mana cost vehicle it's a 4/3. It can't be blocked except by vehicles. So if they don't have any vehicles on their side of the battlefield, then too bad, so sad, this is unblockable. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost. So free instant or sorcery from their graveyard. You're going to be able to do it because it's going to be unblockable. If that spell would be put into the graveyard, it exiles it instead. So you get to use it. They don't get to use it again if they have anything that allows them to do that. And the crew cost is only 2. So what is crew? Basically, it is how much power you need to put into the vehicle in order to drive it. So if you could think of it like 2 little 1/1s, when you combine their power together, their power is 2. So you put them both in by tapping them, and then they're used to crew this vehicle. Now, if this vehicle gets destroyed, those things inside the vehicle are safe. They just are there. You can use a 2/2. If you have a 4/4, you can put 4 power into it. You can put more power than it needs if that's what you have. But that's how crew works.
It's that whole tapping thing as well. So those creatures that get tapped, right? It's awesome. Impact Tremors for 1 in a red. It's a little enchantment that's going to be out there, and it's going to be really, really powerful in this deck because whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, Impact Tremor deals 1 damage to each opponent. Each one. So all your stuff constantly coming out, making all these tokens, you're really going to be doing a lot of damage.
Oh, I love the flavor text on that. If their ears are on the ground, we will make them bleed.
Oh dear.
Nesting Dovehawk is one of the new cards, I think, for 4.
So.
It's flying 2/2. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you get to populate, which means you get to create a token that's a copy of a creature token that you control. So whatever token you have on the battlefield that you want another one, you can do that at the beginning of each combat. Don't have to do anything else, just enter combat. Whenever a creature token enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on Nesting Dovehawk. So now every time a creature enters, including all your little tokens and the populate one that you just populated, you're going to put a 1/1 counter on this. So
good little birdie.
Yeah.
Flock Chaser Phantom. It's a 5/5 for 6, but it does have Convoke as well and has Flying and Vigilance. Flying Vigilance 5/5 is pretty amazing. Yeah. When it attacks, the next spell you cast this turn has Convoke. Yeah. So mean.
And it has the Locust God in it. So, I mean, again, I don't know why people don't want this deck, but Locust God for 4 and a blue and a red. So 6, you get a 4/4 with flying. Whenever you draw a card, and remember, your commander does draw, you have a draw each turn, you have other ways to draw cards, you get to create a 1/1 blue and red insect creature token with flying and haste. You can attack with it right away. If you have Tetsuko out, they're going to be unblockable. You can pay 4 and draw a card, then discard a card, so it has draw on it as well. And it's also got, when it dies, you get to return it to their owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So unless they can exile it, this guy just keeps coming back. He is super annoying.
Yeah, like bugs.
Yep.
Keeper of the Accord, a 3/4 little human soldier. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, if that player controls more creatures than you, create a little 1/1 soldier creature token. Build up your board again. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, if that player controls more lands than you, you may search your library for basic plains and put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. So that's another great little benefit as well to that card.
Seraph of the Masses has Convoke. It's flying, and its power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures you control. So the more creatures you have on the battlefield, the bigger it is. You're going to have to keep track of that each turn. It has Convoke, so it's going to be easy to cast as well, but it does cost 7.
Yeah. Then we have a little Angel of Salvation that is 5/5 for 8. It's got flash though and convoke as well. So it has flying, of course. So they're angels. When it enters the battlefield, prevent the next 5 damage that will be dealt this turn to any number of targets divided as you choose. So it's a great way to save your little dudes. Declare them as blockers, tap them to play her, and they may have blocked, but they don't have to die with her necessarily, which is awesome.
Yep. Kaikar Winds Fury for 4 is a 3/3 with flying, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying, then you can sacrifice a spirit to add mana. So it's a mana generator, it creates lots of little spirits, and it's a flying 3/3. So
good stuff. Emeria Angel, it's a 3/3 for 2 and 2 white that has landfall. Flying, of course, angels. Just assume they're flying. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you're going to make a little white birdie creature token with flying. So that's pretty fun too.
And then Saint Traft and Rem Karolus. We did talk about this one already. It's a little 3/4, so I won't spend a lot of time. But basically, as it enters the battlefield or becomes tapped, or sorry, it's only when it becomes tapped, you're going to create things. And if you can figure out ways to untap him and tap him again each turn, then of course you get bigger and bigger things as it goes. Whenever you cast a convoke spell, he's going to untap. So if he's out on the battlefield, use him to convoke, cast the convoke spell, untap him, use him to convoke again, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah. And you can use the tokens that they're making for convoke as well.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Then we're on to our other cards that are on theme that support this whole convoking craziness that we got going on here. The formula calls for 10 and the deck calls for 16. So we have a card here, Elspeth Sun's Champion. So this one could be potentially a high impact card as well, just because she's just so good. But she's a 4 cost planeswalker that costs, a 4 loyalty planeswalker that costs 4 and 2 white, and her +1 is create 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. Her -3 that you could do right away is destroy all creatures with power 4 or greater. So, wipe their board, keep your little guys that you have there. Or her -7, you can emblem with creatures you control, get +2/+2, and have flying. So potentially she could be a really high impact card for you. This one here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And Venerated Loxodon is another one that we thought maybe could be high impact, but it might be a little too conditional. It's a 4/4 for 6. It has Convoke, and whenever it enters the battlefield, you get to put 1/1 counter on each creature that convoked it. So assuming that you have enough creatures to convoke it when it comes out, it's going to pump them up, which is great.
Yeah. The only problem is because it's big, it's going to be something that's blockable because you have all this. Little guys are unblockable, but big guys aren't. So Goblin Instigator, it's a little 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, you're going to create a couple. Yeah, just one. Create 1 red goblin creature token. So he comes with a friend.
Comes with a friend.
Yeah.
So we're getting into our token generators. We talked about token generators and that you're going to have lots, but hadn't seen that money yet. This is where they are. They're in the support. Migratory Route for 5 is a sorcery. Create 4 1/1 white bird creature tokens with flying. It also has basic land cycling. So if you want, you can pay 2 and discard it and search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle. So if you do need your mana still, you can use it for that. But I would use it for the birds.
Yeah. Then Chasm Skulker, it's a little 1/1 for 3. It's a squid horror. Whenever you draw a card, you get to put a 1/1 counter on it. And when it dies, you create X 1/1 blue squid creature tokens with Island Walk, where X is the number of counters on the Chasm Skulker. So this one, you want to get it as big as you can, and then make a whole bunch of little guys that can't be blocked unless the defending player has islands. So that could be game winning right there.
Yeah.
Other ways to make little
unblockable
dudes.
Yeah. Also, Nadir Kraken, whenever you draw a card, which will be your first untap, upkeep, draw, you may pay 1. If you do, put a 1/1 counter on Nadir Kraken and create a 1/1 blue tentacle creature token. So you're going to get a token, plus you're going to keep making this guy a little bit bigger, which is another reason to use your creatures when you convoke, because then you have your land to do this, because you have to use
Mhm.
your mana to pay the 1. So,
Yeah.
and it's every time you draw. So if it's a second, third, whatever
Mm.
card per turn, that's fine.
Awesome. Then here's one of Leslie's favorite cards, Little Improbable Alliance, a little enchantment for a red and a blue that is out there. And whenever you draw your second card each turn, you get a little 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. And you can pay 6 into this thing to draw a card and discard a card. So
Yeah.
you're definitely going to have a ways to do that.
Yeah. Path of the Ghost Hunter for X1 and white, you get to create X11 white spirit creature tokens with flying. This one has Will of the Planeswalker, which ultimately means, starting with you, everyone's going to vote for either Planeswalk or Chaos. If Planeswalk gets more votes, you Planeswalk. If Chaos gets more votes, then you Chaos ensues. So that has to do with your Planear deck that we explained earlier. Basically, it happens without rolling the dice when this one enters the battlefield.
Yeah. Battle Screech is a cool little sorcery that's 2 and 2 white for 2 to make 2 little 1/1 white bird creature tokens that has flashback. So flashback is that you can play this card from the graveyard, and in this case, its flashback cost is tap 3 untapped white creatures you control. So you just made 2, so you're probably a pretty good chances that you can play this again from your graveyard
Yeah.
pretty easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Secure the Waste for X and 1. Create X11 White Warrior creature tokens. X can be
Cool.
whatever you like, however much you want to invest.
Yeah. Joyful Storm Sculptor. It is a 2/3 for 3 and a red and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, you're going to create 2/1/1 blue and red elemental creature tokens. Whenever you cast a spell that has Convoke, it deals damage, 1 damage to each opponent and each battle they protect. So another little way to ping, ping, ping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ethereum Shields for 2. It has Convoke, and target creature gains indestructible until the end of the turn. So this is one you're going to want to probably save for your commander, because your commander is really important for this deck's card draw and convoking and all that kind of stuff. So if someone tries to kill your commander, then you can give it indestructible.
Yeah. And here's another little protection instant as well. Chant of Vitugazi has Convoke so it's an instant that does cost 6 and 2 white. So it is pretty expensive, but with the Convoke, you're good. And you get to prevent all damage that would be dealt by creatures this turn. You gain life equal to the damage prevented this way. So this is a great one to use on a big attack or a big block.
Yeah. Ren's Resolve for 2. Exile the top 2 cards of your library until the end of your turn. You may play those cards. So a little bit of ruffling through your deck.
Yeah. Mistmeadow Vanisher, it's a 3/2 for 2 and the either a white or a blue. That's what that multicolored hybrid mana thing is. And whenever it becomes tapped, you get to exile up to 1 target non-land, non-token permanent. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So it's a little card that you can use for the convoking thing and then exiling something. Probably your stuff, but maybe not. Might be somebody else's.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what you want to do with that. So, but it does come back to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step.
Untapped.
Yeah.
Village Bellringer is a nice card for a convoke deck because it's a creature that's 1/4 for 3. It has flash, so you can cast it at any time you need, and what it will do is it will untap all creatures you control. So you could use that when you need to, you've convoked or you've attacked, and now you need a bunch of blockers. Or you could use it if you've convoked and used all your creatures to convoke, but now you need more mana to convoke with, or you just want to untap them before combat so that you can swing with them as well. Or after you've attacked, you can untap them so that they're ready to be blockers. So lots of options with this, as well as getting extra convoking.
Mm-hmm. Wildfire Awakener. It is a little human wizard. It's a 3/2 for X and a 1 and a red and a white. It has Convoke, so you can use that Convoke for the X part of the spell as well. When it enters the battlefield, create X/1/1 red elemental creature tokens with whenever this creature becomes tapped, it deals 1 damage to target player.
Yeah.
So it's nice to make those little dudes that you're convoking with deal damage.
Yep. Flight of the Equinox costs 8. What? Oh my gosh, 4, 5. But it does have convoke, so that's fine. You're fine.
Oh, good. So this deck has the formula calls for 34. This deck has 39 lands, so it's lots of ways you can probably tweak this, but we always recommend that you play it a little bit first and see what it's missing, where you're struggling, and think about which cards you can take out. And saying that, Leslie's going to start us off on our tweaks.
Yes. So these are just a few suggestions that we thought might make this deck a little bit better, but please definitely let us know what you would do to tweak this deck, because of course we can't tweak everything, and we love your ideas. So our first thought was that Benny Brack's Zoologist would be a good addition to this deck. He is a 4 mana cost 3/2 that has Convoke, so right on theme. And at the beginning of each end step, if you created a token this turn, you get to draw a card. So again, lots of extra card draw with this, and you're going to probably be creating a token. So
yeah, on every turn somehow.
yeah.
Ways. City on Fire, it's for 5 and 3 red, a little expensive, but it's an enchantment that has Convoke. Again, it's awesome. And it says if a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage instead. So those little tapping things that are going to deal 1 damage are going to do 3. So that's going to really end the game.
Never even thought of that. It's not just combat damage.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes that card even better.
Yeah.
Clever Concealment for 4 is an instant. It has Convoke. And then any number of target non-land permanents you control phase out. So there's a little bit of protection there. We talked about not wanting your things. The difference between phasing out and exiling and coming back to the battlefield is that your tokens can phase out and phase back in again because they're not going into exile. They're just they just don't exist. So, whereas if you exile them and bring them back, they won't come back because they disappear once they've been exiled.
Yeah. Interdisciplinary Mascot. It's for 6 and 2 blue, 5/5, but it does have Convoke, and it has Ward 3. So Ward is they have to pay 3 if they want to target this creature in any way. They have to pay 3 more to do that. And when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. So again, helping you dig through your library and do some fun stuff.
And speaking of battles, so battles have come up in a few of our videos. We haven't really talked about them because they haven't come up, but we thought that this battle might be a really good addition to this deck. So it's Invasion of Segovia. It's a battle. So what you're going to do when you cast this is you're going to put it onto the battlefield under the control of an opponent. And they have to protect it. When Invasion of Segovia enters the battlefield, you create 2 1/1 blue Kraken creature tokens with trample. So you get that as well. It looks like this one is life, I guess, is 4. So they're going to try and defend this. And you're going to try and kill it because when it dies, you get to flip it and take it back. And when it's flipped and taken back, Cadus, Sea Tyrant of Segovia, is now a 3/3 that allows non-creature spells that you have to be cast with Convoke. So it gives everything Convoke. And at the beginning of your end step, you get to untap 4 target creatures. So it helps you untap. It gives things Convoke. So it's a great little dude to have out.
Yeah, really useful. Knight Errant of Eos. It's a 4/4 for 5, but it has Convoke as well. And when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 creature cards with mana value X or less from among them, where X is the number of creatures that convoked Knight Errant of Eos. Put the revealed cards into your hand, then shuffle. Great way to dig through your deck. Convoke as much as possible.
Yeah. If you really, really want some more card draw, Transcendent Message for X and 4 blue. It has Convoke, though, and then you get to draw X cards. So you can pump in as much as you want and then have all of these cards in your hand.
The Zephyr Singer, it is a 3/4 for 4. with Convoke, Flying Vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield, put a flying counter on each creature that convoked it. So this is really helpful.
And that
Get
counter
in there.
stays because it's a flying
Yeah.
counter.
Yeah.
Ghostly Pilfer, when it becomes untapped, you may pay 2 if you do draw cards. So you could use it to convoke and then untap it, and then you get to draw a card, which is fantastic. Whenever an opponent casts a spell from anywhere other than their hand, you get to draw a card. And discard a card, and Ghostly Pilfer can't be blocked this turn. So it helps with the unblockable, it helps with some card draw, and is right on theme.
Yeah. Retreat to Coral Helm. It's for 2 and a blue, a little enchantment that says whenever it has landfall. So whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you get to choose one. You may tap or untap target creature. So you can use that for yours or theirs. Do the whole convoking thing, of course. And you could also scry one, which would really be helpful sometimes too.
And the best librarian in the Plains realms is Tamiyo. This one is the Moon Sage. For 5, you get a 4/4 loyalty Planeswalker. Her +1 ability is that you get to tap target permanent. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step, so a little bit of removal. You can -2 to draw a card for each tapped creature target player controls, whether it be you or you can target yourself if you've tapped all your dudes. Or you can target your opponents. And then it's -8 is you get an emblem that says you have no maximum hand size. And whenever a card is put into your graveyard from anywhere, you may return it to your hand. So now remember, you're drawing a ton of cards. And so whether you need to discard them or whether you just don't want to discard them, having no maximum hand size will be really important. And we didn't really talk about that in our tweaks, but that is something that you might want to think about. There's a couple artifacts and lands that allow you to have no maximum hand size. Because you're drawing so much in this deck, you might want to think about that.
Yeah. See how it goes.
Yeah.
And then we've also got, if you have it, it's a pretty expensive card, but if you have it, this would be a good deck to put it in. The Anointed Procession. It is an enchantment for 3 and a white that says if an effect would create 1 or more creature tokens under your control, it creates twice that many of those tokens instead. So really, really goes crazy with this deck, I'm sure. So, yeah.
Yeah. So that brings us to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. We are available if you'd like to find us, of course, on YouTube and Twitch. We can be found there from time to time. Also, feel free to connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'd love to hear how you would tweak this deck or just what you think about Magic in general. We will see you next time. And in the meantime,
Tap those magic cards and have fun doing it. Thanks,
bye,
everyone.
guys.